Shadow of the Colossus, otherwise known as a PlayStation 2 exclusive with absolutely god-awful shit frame rate. I mean, look at this! This is not even quote-unquote cinematic 24 FPS, it's 20, 15 even, sometimes 10. In the rare moments when the game runs at 30, it feels like 60 just because while playing Shadow of the Colossus, you forget what smooth movement looks like. Now, before you start writing comments like, well, why did you talk about the PS3 remaster? That sounds at a constant 30 FPS. Meh, meh, meh. Or, well, why did you play the PS4 remake that can run at 60 as well? Meh, meh, meh. Or, well, why did you emulate your PS2 copy of the game for better performance? Meh, meh, meh. Or, well, why did you play an early release that wasn't yet made at the moment of writing this video but exists now? Meh, meh, meh. Just stop and listen first to what I have to say, okay? Yes, Shadow of the Colossus framerate on a PlayStation 2 is capable of making your eyes bleed with joy that the console is capable of running this game in the first place. It is true that poor performance can potentially enrage even the calmest player, but interestingly enough, Shadow of the Colossus running like absolute garbage brings an entirely opposite emotion, that of wonder. How the fuck does this game work on the most underpowered console of its generation? Shadow of the Colossus is not an unoptimized game, it's optimized as fuck, the best it can be. It just tries doing what no other PS2 title has even attempted. By the time Shadow of the Colossus launched in 2005, developers across studios all over the world had perfected a variety of tricks and compromising choices to make games run silky smooth on the platform. Shadow of the Colossus says fuck this shit to literally every such practice. Fill the open world to the brim with objects and terrain blocking the view of far distances? Shadow of the Colossus says fuck that, I'm gonna show everything. And when you do approach a cliff or ravine, the game fills it with more objects, bigger texture, lusher vegetation than the console has capabilities of properly processing. Then there's the titular Colossi, literal walking, climbable levels of immense size with shitloads of fur designating surfaces you can cling onto. These are not just huge 3D models, they're fully interactive, constantly moving environments. And lest we not forget about the extremely detailed physics systems with inverse kinematics, various visual effects like rubble, destructible structures, modifiable terrain, even if temporarily. Any single one of the previously mentioned points would have already been a huge achievement and an extremely effective selling point for pretty much any game out there. Yet Shadow of the Colossus, when asked which one of these it wants to focus on, just answered yes. This is why I wanted to talk about Shadow of the Colossus as it is on PlayStation 2 specifically. It is reasonable to expect a game like it on PlayStation 3. It is not surprising at all to find a game like it on PlayStation 4. Same with PlayStation 5, 6, 7 or what have you in the decade you're watching this video. But on PlayStation 2, on the fucking tiny PlayStation 2, you see Shadow of the Colossus. You see this struggling slideshow of a game, and you're in awe, because you can't expect anything else like this at all on the platform. Well, yeah, nowadays doubly so, since it's an unsupported console nobody makes games for anymore, but you know what I mean. These 10 FPS are a bloody miracle. It does help that there's no focus on any twitchy or fast reaction time mechanics. Every action is very deliberate, slow and weighty, which is great because it takes forever for a game to process any of your inputs, so it kinda plays like shit. I mean, if we really want, we can explain away the impossibly finicky to aim bow as the protagonist Wander being more experienced with swords, and the excessively clunky horse riding as Arrow being too big of a horse for the player. But really, it's fair to just accept that the local gameplay mechanics are a kinda bad implementation of great concepts. Just have to get used to it, eventually, at some point, but I wouldn't fault the developers for this. After all, should you try to change a variable from 5.5 to 7.5 and see if that helps with the controls feeling smoother? With the game's average 15 FPS, the difference would be of the fuck if I know variety. So, no hard feelings there. What Shadow of the Colossus of course can offer in place of smooth gameplay is a large, empty, barren world with practically nothing to do in it, pretty much no story beyond the initial setup and key events at the end of the game, no lore to speak of besides what you headcanon for yourself, and only one activity to participate in, killing the 16 Colossi so the disembodied entity Dormin could revive the sacrificed lady we brought to these forbidden lands. And before you start writing, well, that's just your opinion, man, you're assuming I'm saying all this with a negative connotation, but I'm not. All those statements are true. There is barely anything to do in the quiet empty landscapes of the Forbidden Lands, except finding fruit and lizard tails that increase your health and stamina, something you can discover only if you're curious, as the game doesn't tell it is possible, though it also is not mandatory at all in your standard playthrough. There is a time attack mode and unlockables, but those gamey additions are something you get to discover only after beating the game at least once. The story does lack any sort of progression beyond the beginning and endpoints. The lore is vague at best, with barely any answers for anything, relying on you just imagining whatever you feel fits. And the actual gameplay is only about killing Colossi, as unique and never repeating as each of their respective level and behavior designs are. And none of this is neither good nor bad, it just is what it is. Shadow of the Colossus absolutely revels in excessive minimalism of epic proportions. Everything is scaled up to such a degree that PlayStation 2 is not able to consistently keep up with that ambition. Environments, locations, detailizations, opponents that are literally colossal. And yet at the same time, only the absolute, bare, necessary minimum is retained for pretty much every other aspect of the game. So, the real question to answer for understanding whether you like Shadow of the Colossus or not is, do you find beauty in loneliness? Because that's what you're gonna be throughout most of the game. Alone. Even your loyal to a fault horse companion Otto can't follow you everywhere. And when you are with Otto, riding towards your next destination across a vast, empty plain with nothing but voices of nature as your soundtrack, what are you thinking about? Do you require regular dopamine hits to enjoy playing a game? Shadow of the Colossus doesn't have that. It builds up to a huge dopamine hit by accompanying your climb of the next Colossus with absolutely epic music. Then takes it away by showcasing the tragedy of the creature's death after the final blow. Every time. And when inescapable, weird, dark tentacles encroach you after every kill, it's impossible to not question whether you're doing the right thing. Which is something the game will never answer. I mean, you can interpret everything that happens, including the ending, a certain way, or a different way, or a third way. There's actually so many ways you can interpret the lore and events of the game, and there will be no confirmation, ever. No answer to put your mind at ease, nothing for you to point at and say, this is truth, this is fact. So, are you okay with that?